So I ask you this right off the top, RC. Your reaction to this Final Four is what?
I'm happy for it. I really am. I'm happy for it. I'm not one of these guys that say I'm not any less excited than I was this one than as I was last year. Now, for the casual fan, they probably are. But, I mean, they're probably a little disappointed thinking that, with the Florida Blue Bloods we had a year ago. But I'm perfectly happy with it. Everyone's here deserving of it, and all four have a legitimate shot at winning this thing. So I'm happy for all four schools involved, and it wouldn't, I wouldn't, turn my nose down to a quote unquote mid-major winning the national championship. I think we're at these times right now.
Yeah, I'm with RC. I mean, I think this is the parity in college basketball. I think this was this year. Like, there was no clear-cut number one team in the country, throughout the course of the season, even going back to November and December. I mean, think about how many different number one teams in the country we had. And this was the path that we were going down, and we could see it, we could feel it. And that's where we're at. And that's why this tournament this year has been so much fun to watch. And, you look at these teams that have made it to this point, and even going into Houston, you can say UConn's the favorite, but man, it's hard to even say that. You don't know what's going to transpire in these games and who's going to play the best. I mean, I thought the article that Matt Norlander wrote today too, about Dusty May and his rise in Florida Atlantic, the guy almost backed out of the job, and now he's sitting here in the Final Four at a place that doesn't have the resources that these other schools have, and that's what makes this tournament the best. Is it doesn't matter that throw those things out. The team that performs and plays the best, and is the most unselfish and plays the hardest, is going to win this tournament, and that's where we're sitting right now. It's unbelievable.
Fanta, I'm gonna add this. The other thing I'd say is no one complains when we watch football, and it's the same. Like, I can tell you right now, next year's FBS is going to be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU or Auburn, or one of those schools with an Oklahoma,
maybe an Oklahoma,
maybe a USC, and Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Clemson. Like, it's like 8 schools, and that's it. So stop it. So anybody sitting here talking this nonsense, I don't want to hear it. Basketball is in a far better place, because I don't want to hear that, because you don't get tired of football, and it's the same damn teams every year.
The bigger, faster, stronger team.
I'm glad you both said it off the top, because I'll extend it right now. The last 4 Final Fours, okay? That's 16 teams. It's been 16 different college hoops programs. None of this repeat stuff. We've seen 16 different schools.
Yeah.
And this year is a direct reflection of the climate of the sport. And if you're going to call it March Madness, don't just be okay with it for one weekend.
Right.
Oftentimes, college basketball's postseason has actually gotten criticized. And I'll say this, I understand this argument of, well, early upsets sometimes lead to blowouts later in the tournament. Not this tournament. UConn has run through everybody. That doesn't matter if it's upset or not. They're their own case. But in the Elite Eight round with the non-traditional brands, we saw 3 games decided by 7 points or less. 2 of the games, Creighton, San Diego State, and Florida Atlantic, Kansas State, were decided on the final possession of the game.
Yep.
And the 7-point game was one of the wildest comebacks we've seen, and I think as good of a game as any in the tournament in Miami's comeback over Texas. But this should be celebrated. Jim Larinaga said it earlier today. He said it so well. He said, look, I understand that fans in college basketball identify with certain programs. So he said, you probably don't want this every single year. But guess what? We won't see this every single year. You will see that some of the heavy hitters get back in there in some way, shape, or form. But for now, this is proof that if you don't follow the entire sport in December, January, and February, you're missing out. These teams didn't get lucky, or the bounce of the ball got them here, or they came out of nowhere. Like, we're talking about a 35-3 Florida Atlantic program. We're talking about a 31-6 San Diego State program. I don't think I've ever seen, Randolph, a team from the Atlantic Coast Conference that made the Elite Eight a year ago now produce some sort of surprise. Folks, Miami's backcourt's as good as any in America. Like, Randolph, does it surprise you that the Hurricanes are standing?
No, and I've been adamant about that for quite some time. About what they're capable of, and when they're playing well, they can beat anybody. We always talk about guard play can get you here. No one has better guard play and depth than those guys have, and so it's not surprising at all. I mean, I don't get it, John. We talked about that. I don't think we're gonna go back to some of the old ways that everybody's thinking. Like this isn't like a fad. First, the next year you're gonna have another year the very same thing. The COVID year, we're already see the announcements coming back. Marquee names and guys are coming back. Yep. Major shift. But kudos to those guys. But the reason I say this, and I welcome you guys' opinion on it. Why I say it's going to change is look at what's happening with North Carolina as well. Matt, years ago, for so many years, guys would go to those blue bloods and go to those schools and just sit and wait their turn. Those days are over. They're not doing that anymore. They're not going to your blue bloods just to say, hey, I'm happy to be here and I'm going to wait my turn. Those guys are going somewhere and they're going to, mid-major schools and they're playing. And I don't think you're ever going to get that quality of depth that some of these high major programs that you're accustomed to if you're an older fan. Them days are long gone and they're not coming back.
RC, I couldn't agree more. I mean, here's the thing too. The transfer portal now is popular. Because of social media, it's popular to see verbal commits say Matt McCall has entered the transfer portal. Like it's a popular thing. So that's why nobody's waiting their turn. Like nobody's, hey, I'm going here. I'm going to sit out. I'm going to develop. I'm going to grow. I'm going to get better. Like I even look back in 2014 on the Final Four run that we had at Florida that we lost to UConn. Like a lot of those guys that were seniors and they were older, they waited their turn.
They're not doing that anymore.
Casey Prather waited his turn. He waited. Nobody's doing that because now it's popular to go in the portal. It's popular. And now guys are doing it 2 and 3 times. And, what can I get? What can I get? What can I gain from this? And the clock hits 0 for these coaches. And Fanta, you in the group chat, you sent Greg McDermott's message, and I thought that was an unbelievable message. And then, in his locker room after that game, but man, there's nothing fun about it for coaches right now. Once it hits 0, once it's over, man, it's especially from now or when your season ended March 1st, whenever it may be, from now until middle of May. Is miserable because you don't know. And you can have a guy that you think's bought in that, man, when you get that text message, hey, coach, can we meet? That's it. And
Matt, you don't even get that. They don't have to talk to you. There's one phone call, one text. I've known programs where the compliance officer called the coach and say, hey, so-and-so John Fanta just called in and said he wanted to put it, in the transfer portal. Like, you don't even have to meet anymore. You just can say, hey, I'm gone.
Yeah.
It's popular. What needs to change there?
It's not. It can't. That genie, that's out the bottle. That genie's out the bottle. It's not going to change. And I think the other thing the most underrated thing that's added to this is you have now allowed agents in locker rooms. And that's a game changer. You're allowing agents because now people talk about, the conversation we're talking about, it's legal now. They're already in your locker room. So there's nothing for me to say, hey, John, I'm already calling around. I've already have established relationships with other programs, other coaches. So it's already done. It's already in play. So you're damn right. There's communication behind the scenes with everybody else because they got representation now. And that representation is going to find them money. It makes them money. It's just it's a no-brainer. It's gonna happen. So you're kidding yourselves if you don't believe that to be the case.
Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play college basketball pick'em, where you can get a little extra sweat during March Madness and win real cash prizes simply by picking player stats in this weekend's games. In pick'em, all you do is predict whether a player will go higher or lower on Underdog's projected totals, whether that's points, rebounds, whatever. For example, if you're like me and you think Zach Edey is going to go nuts in this tournament, pick higher on his points projection, add up to 4 more picks, and if you hit them all, you can win 20 times your money on a single game. Underdog's slick mobile app is easy enough that dummies like Jeff Goodman have even figured it out. So go to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app and use the code FIELD, FIELD, and Underdog will match your deposit up to $100. Now is the time to get in on the madness. So remember, UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code FIELD.